Hello, everybody. We are here with Kristen Jenson, the author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, a great resource for young families to address this growing concern of pornography and the dangers of it, but also just successful ways that we can approach it and make this a opportunity to connect and bond with our children. So we really appreciate your time with us here, and we're excited to share this book with a lot of parents out there.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be talking with you today. I love to talk with parents.
So at School of Love, we're all about fostering that parent-child relationship and really having those continuous conversations, even on tough topics. So we love that in Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, it's written in a conversational tone between a parent and child. Can you tell us more about your inspiration behind writing the book?
Well, the inspiration came after I got a phone call from a mother. She had a large family. She was homeschooling them, really trying to protect them, maybe cocoon them, from all of the, the issues out in the world that she felt would be harmful to them. Unfortunately, when you have an internet connection, the world can come to your home. So unfortunately, this her oldest son, they found that he was sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters, and he also had been, into pornography. Now, the two often go hand in hand, and I think that parents need to be aware that this is one of the dangers. I just recently actually talked with him again. He's now much older. He had to be prosecuted. We went through a 2-year program. He really feels like he doesn't have any issues with acting out sexually with young children, but he still has issues with pornography. So that's something that really, concerned me. And after I got off of this phone call with his mom, I woke up the next morning and I just had this compelling feeling that I should look into resources for children. And I just thought, I'll just find a book on Amazon or somewhere that will talk about, there's stranger dangers and there's, good touch, bad touch, whatever, I'm sure there's a book about how to warn children about pornography. And I couldn't find anything. And then I started to do more research and was shocked to see that pornography is a huge issue out there with children, but there doesn't seem to be very many resources to help parents mentor their children in this area. And it is a sensitive topic. It's a scary topic. But we can do this, we help our kids through lots of scary things and hard things. And this is just one more. So that led to writing Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And it took 3 years, but it finally came out, and it's been over 4 years since it's come out. And we've recently just introduced a second edition that is updated and has lots of discussion questions, and I've rewritten the entire section, the guide for parents and caregivers. So anyway, we look for the cover with the green shirt. And he's holding an iPad or a tablet instead of a laptop. So we've really updated it. And it's amazing how things change over time, but there are some things that are the same, and that is we need to talk to our children about pornography because it is going to be a challenge that they will have to face.
Yeah, it's kind of a new challenge that we didn't face before so much when we were younger. Maybe there's magazines around, but now it's so easily accessible, and to jump straight from watching an innocent YouTube video to moving on in the browser, it's right in our children's reach. And
yes,
but yeah, I think one of the things is I think it might be scary for some parents to want to start addressing this. More thinking, well, my child is innocent, or my child isn't going to see those things, or I have, I have the kids tablet that restricts certain, websites and such. And so some parents may be a little apprehensive to address this topic. So what age do you think it's appropriate to start talking to children about pornography?
Well, I don't give us a certain age. What I say, and what many other experts have said, is that it's really depends on, does your child have any access to the internet, any whatsoever? Meaning, do they have access to the internet at the preschool they go to, at the cousin's house that they go to? Do they have any access to the internet when you hand them your phone to play with when you're grocery shopping or whatever? Any access at all to the internet, and it's important to give them some kind of warning. I say there are two plans. There's the, cross your fingers plan, and that's what we've been using for a long time, and it doesn't seem to be working. So instead of the cross your fingers, I really hope that my kid never sees this. I really hope that if they do, they would know to come to me and tell me about it. I really hope I don't have to talk about this and ruin their innocence. But you know what? I don't believe innocence is the goal. When we look at our young children and we think, oh my goodness, they're so innocent, and we love that about them. But the world, this is the world we live in, and it's really not about innocence. It's about being able to choose the right? Choose, make good decisions. And when we want to bring our children up to be able to say, yeah, that's bad and that's good, and I'm going to go with the good, even though the bad looks interesting and enticing, and everyone's saying the good, that the bad is maybe good. We want to help our children, be able to distinguish and to know the good from the bad and choose the good, right? So eventually, innocence is not the goal. What's the goal is a child that can grow up being mentored by parents and knowing how to choose the good. Because they're going to see the bad. You just cannot cocoon a child in this day and age. You can only educate and prepare them.
Right. I love that. And that really explains the title really well, too. So do you have an age recommendation for the two books, The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and the Junior edition?
Sure, I do. We first came out with The Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and this is, this has got more words on the page, right? I think this would be good for 7 to 11. Now, I'll put a caveat in there, and I've had many parents read this book to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. It's amazing what they can pick up and what they can learn. Even at that, I think we often, we discount how intelligent our kids are, how smart they are. But if you go at it slow, you can read this to a younger child. And, we had so many requests that I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. And this one we say 3 to 7, although I've had parents tell me they've read it to their 2.5-year-old. This has a lot of, pictures and, not so many words, right? Lots of pictures, but not a lot of words. So this is great for those especially if you have an 8-year-old child, boy or girl, that is just can hardly sit down for 5 minutes, then, you want to start with this one because it has a great feature in it that my illustrator came up with, and that is the hidden cameras that you can have the child look for throughout the book. So we really wanted to make it fun for the kids. And so all of these little cameras are hidden throughout the book, and you can find them, you can kind of see on the couch, there it is. They're just hidden in all different areas of the pictures. And there's 19 of them, and so you can count and see how many you can find, and the kids love that. So the other thing I would say is that this book, I've had therapists actually use this with adult clients because we break down the process of addiction. Our world is filled with so many addictive substances and behaviors. I mean, look at Netflix, you know, you're watching one Netflix and ding, 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 boink, the other one comes on, you know, you can binge watch. And I mean, there's just so many ways to get addicted to all kinds of things. And this breaks down the process of addiction. And it doesn't matter whether it's a behavioral addiction or a substance addiction. Addiction is addiction to the brain. And I don't understand why we wouldn't want our children to understand how their brains work and become addicted. Every child should know that about their brains. And so we break it down. But even though this book is kind of geared to reading to a 7 to 11-year-old, it's really applicable to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you mentioned the brain, so we really like the terminology. You mentioned the thinking brain and the feeling brain. Could you explain that a little more?
Sure. So in this book, we talk about the two brains. We all have two brains, and kids love to hear that. They didn't know they had two brains. Mm-hmm. Actually, we probably all have three brains, but we want to simplify it for kids, right? So we have the thinking brain and the feeling, the thinking brain and the feeling brain. And the feeling brain is that automatic part of your brain that is very involved in survival. It just tries to go and get what it thinks you need to survive. And so when it's hot out, it makes your body sweat. You know, when it's cold, it makes your body shiver. These are all the unconscious, automatic parts of your brain that work. The thinking brain, on the other hand, is slower. It matures when you're about 20 years old, maybe 25. It's all about putting the brakes on, you know, your appetites. So a little child will chase a ball into the street and not stop, right? Because they're not thinking about the car that could come until you teach them. Children need to be taught, and you're teaching their thinking brain to basically overcome or override their feeling brain and to be in control. So we teach children the difference. The other thing about the thinking brain, which is right here, the prefrontal cortex, is that is where we learn our ethics, our morals. That's where we learn what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. And your feeling brain doesn't know right from wrong. You know, it's kind of like a lion that chases a gazelle, right? And it's going to eat that thing because it's hungry. It doesn't worry about, like, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I really been killing an animal to eat? No, it just goes after, kills the animal, and eats it. And that's your feeling brain. And when your feeling brain gets corrupted by an addiction, it just goes for what it thinks it needs, which is that addictive substance or behavior. And, you know, that's why people with addictions can't really get out of them without some outside help. They need somebody else's brain to help them recover and rewire around that addiction so that they are can be healthy and not dominated and hijacked by their feeling brain. Mm-hmm. So we teach kids this, and every kid should know about how their brain can become addicted to anything, whether it's porn. Porn just happens to be the drug of choice that is available to every kid. Like, we don't sell cigarettes to kids. We won't let kids go in a liquor store and buy booze, right? We won't. No, we protect our kids from those things. but we haven't done a good job yet of protecting them from pornography. And that is the thing that's available to them through any, any device.
Mm.
Yeah, and I like that, even that you're identifying one as good and one as bad, because I do feel in culture today that the feeling brain, or what feels good, it kind of dominates the conversation. But as parents, we want to also guide our children into healthy behaviors, healthy attitudes towards sex and sexuality, and healthy attitudes towards men and women and the relationship, and not just to assume, oh, this picture I see is normal, or if it feels good, then we can replicate that. But that's actually a harmful image that hurts me, that hurts the way that I look at women, or
Right. And in our new edition, the second edition, I really try to talk a little bit more about that, but on a child's level,
Sure.
right? Objectification. You can't really get into the weeds with all of that.
Yeah.
But we do mention it, and it could be something that you could expand the conversation on. Healthy sexuality is something that is so important for our children. Pornography is just hijacking their sexuality and teaching them that, it's violent. It's just teaching all the wrong ideas about sex. And but the good thing is, even if you haven't talked to your children about sex, you can read good pictures, bad pictures to them. We don't even mention the word sex in either of the books.
Yeah.
So that it's safe. Because kids need to be protected from pornography even before, you talk about the birds and the bees often.
Yeah, that was one of our questions. Do we need to address sex before children talk about this, or can they understand this concept?
They can understand this before you have, but I would say that there's a chapter in here that is a great lead-in to that conversation and would be helpful. So I would say there's my brain's attraction center. That's that's our term for the sexual center, our brain's attraction center. But super comfortable, super comfortable. So that would be something that but I will say, we need to talk to our kids about sex in a layered way. And I wouldn't, if I could just give a few tips about that, I wouldn't make it this big event. Because when you make it this big event, and we're going to go and do this special thing, and that kids get it in their mind that they can't talk about it outside. So the more you normalize it, the more you talk to them, start by naming all of their parts, give the right names for the parts of their body, their private parts, and the more you can do it in a kind of a calm, non-shaming way, the better off our children are. And the earlier, the better. They will start having questions. And of course, you don't have to give them everything, but just set yourself up as the go-to expert, right, on those questions about sex. Because if you're not the go-to expert, their friends will be, and Google will be, and you won't, and that will not be healthy for your kids.
Yeah. And that kind of goes in, because there's one thing I think for a lot of parents is they might think, well, there's a lot of experts out there. There's the guidance counselor at school. There's, sex education classes in school. There's Sunday school. There's church, and should my children's pastor or my youth pastor be talking? And some parents may feel a reluctance to talk about this and think, well, I can pass this conversation on to one of the experts, someone that really knows about.
I can outsource this.
Yes, because it's uncomfortable. Oh, I don't want to talk to my 5-year-old about pornography. I don't feel comfortable. So why do you feel like it's important that the parents should be the ones that introduce this topic or continue to talk about this?
Because the parents are going to be there, hopefully, for most of the child's life. And counselors come and go, other people come and go, teachers come and go. You need to set yourself up as the mentor, to mentor them through the digital world that they live in. And I know it's uncomfortable. Practice with a friend. Say words in the shower. I don't know. Lots of times when I present, I'll say, okay, everyone, on the count of 3, we're all going to say pornography, because we need to get comfortable with that word. We need to be able to say, hey, that word is not going to intimidate me. For our adult minds that know what pornography is and how violent and degrading and dark it is, we're just by saying the word pornography, we're not going to put all that in their head, right? We're simply going to identify what it is in simple, child-appropriate ways so that they can come to us and tell us if they've seen nudity. That for a young child is pretty much, I think that's the beginning. And then as they get older, you can talk about, the other ways that pornography is harmful and how it's so degrading and some of the things they might see.
Right. And in your book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, you give a can-do plan. So I really like that we don't just read it once to your kids and it's done, but it's something that you can constantly remind your child of. Can you share a little more about the can-do plan?
Yeah, the can-do plan. Well, there are 3 things that you need to do with the children initially. So one is to define what pornography is or what bad pictures are. 2, teach them that they're harmful and why they're harmful. And 3, give them a plan of how to react or respond so they're prepared. A child that's caught off guard is a vulnerable child. So you don't want your children to be vulnerable. So what you need to do is give them a plan. So we came up with, in the book, the can-do plan. And it's easy for kids to remember. C stands for close your eyes when you see it, A stands for always tell a trusted adult. N stands for, I'm spacing on my own can-do. Name it when you see it. Name it when you see it. And so when you name it, you're using your thinking brain, right? Because when you see something that is sexual, the feeling brain is activated and aroused. You need to put the brakes on that and bring your thinking brain online so you can, turn away and tell your parents and do all the things that you need to do to keep yourself safe. So that's the first part of the can plan. The D and the O those parts are very important, because when a child sees an image, that image is so shocking usually that it imprints on their brain in a big way. In fact, if I ask most adults, like, what was the first pornographic picture you ever saw? Almost everybody can remember, like, what it was, because it was so shocking. So we need to help children know what to do when those memories come back into their mind. They pop up, and they may, entice kids to go looking for more. So we need to help them minimize that experience. So we can actually, there's methods, and it's described in both of these books and also in the junior book, for helping a child forget a picture. Now, technically, it's difficult to forget a picture. However, there's ways to minimize it. And basically what you're doing is you're developing another pathway around that picture that goes somewhere else. Because if you keep thinking about the same picture, you start to develop a bigger pathway, a trail, a superhighway to that picture. You want to be able to divert and develop another pathway away from it. So we have that in that, and also we talk about that on Protect Young Minds. ProtectYoungMinds.org is my website, and we have so much information, free guides for parents there. It's our labor of love, really, that we do for parents.
Yeah, it's funny because it's kind of like when you were saying, "Oh, I don't want to eat the chocolate," so you keep saying, "Don't eat the chocolate."
Yeah,
Without
right.
the chocolate, and then you eat the chocolate. But I think it's great to, yeah, empower them to say, you have this thinking brain, you have this ability to overcome this feeling brain, to overcome just our daily desires, that you
Mhm.
have the ability to say, hey, I've got a bigger goal than just eating the chocolate. I'm
Yeah,
trying to be healthy. And
yeah.
so I'm going to overcome that by empowering this. They have control over themselves.
They have some control over themselves, and as they get older, hopefully they have more control. But I
Mhm.
want to just really stress that in a way the parents have to be part of that thinking brain,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? You are a part of the thinking brain for your child. You are the one that says, you know, stop and look both ways before you cross that street, and do this, do that, and you're checking in with your child, and you're making sure they're safe, and put a jacket on before you go outside. And you really are the thinking brain, because kids are impulsive and they're compulsive. So that's why your parents have to be there daily mentoring their children about how to keep their brains safe from these digital dangers.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's developing an ongoing conversation, and that's why I like, yeah, that you're the founder of the, yeah, like you said, the Protect Young Minds, and so there's those ongoing resources. So this book can kind of introduce the topic, and I know it's split up into sections, but they can talk about it a little there. But Protect Young Minds gives some additional resources that parents can bring up from time to time as different topics come up.
Yes. We have so many resources. We have so many articles on current things that are, that come up with video games, or with new apps, or, what do you do when your child. So we have people, readers, that pose very challenging questions, and we often will talk to, therapists, experts, get the best, answers that we can, pull them together, and write a blog post. There was one father that wrote into us and said, our neighbor child, a neighbor friend, 7 years old, is coming over and masturbating in front of my kids.
Oh my goodness.
What do I do? Well, no one wants to talk about masturbation, but we do tackle that subject occasionally, and have a great article that's very helpful. We also have a Facebook page and a Facebook parent discussion group that people can join, parents can join, and then that's where I think parents feel a little more comfortable talking about these sensitive questions. And you can post a question anonymously and then give feedback, and it's really been an excellent resource. And so I would invite anyone that is watching this to go to our parent discussion group on Protect Young Minds on Facebook and check it out, because we just need a safe place to talk about these things. It's hard. Like, who do you talk with? And this is a great place to do it.
It's really inspiring to see, from that kind of wake-up call you had, that story you shared in the beginning, to see how much you've provided and created for parents and kids. It's really awesome. We have one final question. We're just wondering if you could share a success story of how your work has impacted a young family or a child, or just a story that you might have.
Yeah, I have so many. Let me just share one. There's a mom, and she was very concerned, and she's one of those moms that's super careful about who her kids play with, where they play, and she's like really careful. And there was a new family that moved in down the block, down the street. They're kind of in a more rural area, and it was a little, maybe quarter of a mile down, and she hadn't had time to kind of check them out yet. But their little boy came over and wanted to ride bikes with her son. And so she gave them permission to go back to their house, get his bike, and then come back to her house and ride around there. Well, she didn't think there'd be any harm to that. And who would?
Mm-hmm.
But she'd already read her son Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and she just read it to him again, actually. And it was fresh in his mind. They decided to just run inside, I don't know, get a drink or something. They ran inside, and when they ran inside, wouldn't you know it, the older brother, teenage brother, said, "Hey, I want to show you something," and exposed this little 7-year-old to pornography.
Man.
So, which is terrible, because one must consider that a lot of people use pornography for grooming. So a child isn't just at risk for seeing bad pictures and getting addiction. A child is at risk for being groomed for child abuse. So he went home and he told his mom right away what had happened. And she said, if we had never talked about it, I don't think he would have ever told me. He would have kept it inside himself, which so many children do. They know it's shameful, and so they just keep it inside themselves. They're burdened by it. I have other stories where parents have read the book to their children, and then the children say, "Yeah, I saw this. I saw something like this, and it was months ago, and it was at this girl's house." Or, kids need to know what to do when they're faced with this, what is really often a scary, traumatizing event. I'll just add in one more. Another boy went to school. His mom had prepared him to know what to do. He had the can-do plan. And he went to school, was exposed. This was in 3rd grade. And came home and he said, "Mom, I was scared, but I knew what to do." I knew what to do. And it's just like, isn't that what you want to give your kids? Like, they know what to do. They can come to you and you can help them, work through it. And we have a whole page on our website called Help and Heal. And it's really great advice for like when that happens, when either you find that your child has been looking at porn or they come to you, like how not to like react, how to be calm and what kind of questions to ask. So all that information is on protectyoungminds.org.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm just imagining the release for these children, that they're not feeling shame, they're not feeling guilt, and they could process it. They found out, hey, I can talk to mom and dad about these issues. I don't have to hide myself, but, and as they grow and experience other things, now they have someone to turn to. And I think this was a great step, and I'm so glad that we have this resource and we can share this with other people, and for all the work that you put in to kind of open up this door for many families.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been great talking with you. And these books are they're just some tools, right, in the toolbox. But it's that parent's love and concern for the child and paying attention that is like the most important. So I'm glad we can help. But parents definitely have a challenge in front of them. But as they bring their child up, with love and understanding and in a non-shaming way, I really believe that kids can learn to reject pornography and be healthy and happy.